Hello everyone, in this video we will be talking about Gintoki Sakata, which is considered to be borderline OP by many. And one of the main reasons why this hero is OP is actually because of his talent, Soul of the Samurai. So whenever one allied unit, himself or any of his teammates is attacked, gains one stack of the talent, which will increase his attack and decrease his damage taken by up to 8% for 4 turns, which is stackable up to 4 times. So basically 32% attack and up to 32% damage taken decrease at this max 4 stack. Which is pretty insane. 32 attack is a lot and 32 damage taken decrease is like 3/3 of a last right. And this shit cannot be dispelled, and upon reaching these 4 stacks, he will additionally enter the Shiroyasha state, which is kind of like a transform, if you think about other, time units, which will increase his mobility by 2 and further increases his in-battle damage dealt by another 30%. So he has 32% attack, 32% damage dealt increase, and 32% damage taken decrease. And this unit will be able to attack before the enemy, both when attacking and when attacked in melee. Well, because he's a melee unit. And whenever an allied unit dies, he will automatically gain 4 stacks of his talent. And if Gintoki has already taken action this turn, I don't know why they say they, then they can take action again. So this basically means if Gintoki has already ended his turn, if an allied unit, which includes summons, dies, he will just automatically act again on top of getting that 4 stacks of talent, which is quite insane. That's a lot of ants in the talent. So basically, like, a summon dies and he just gets his full talent. Yeah, a little bit overtuned if you ask me. Moving on, we'll be looking at his skills, and to start it off, we'll go through the top 3, which is going to be his most common set in PvP. So first off, we start off with his 1-cost skill, Sugar Intake. This skill will recover 50% of Gintoki's HP, and you will gain 1 stack of sugar for 6 turns. This sugar doesn't really do anything, it's stackable, and you can move an additional 3 blocks and attack again after use. Upon reaching 2 stacks of sugar, so the second time you use this within the 6 turn cooldown, 6 turn duration of the sugar, you will get Sugar Comma, which decreases your hero mobility by 1, and your damage dealt will be reduced by 15%. You don't consume buffs when acting again. You cannot dispel, and this thing ignores immunity. For the Sugar and Sugar Comma, you can heal block it. And Sugar Comma does not take effect while in Shiroyasha state, so anything below, this Sugar Comma you can kind of ignore, because I would say it is extremely uncommon for you to have 2 stacks of sugar but be outside of your transform state. It's really rare. You need to have no allied unit dying for quite a few turns, even if you abuse the act again every single action. So next up, we have Scooter Dash, which is basically Isekai Express, where you just throw your scooter at them in a straight line. It attacks all enemies in the straight line, and it deals 0.4 times AoE damage for a 2-cost skill, and breaks their weapon effect, excluding max HP effects, for 2 turns. If the target is not a player hero, blah 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 blah, decrease attack by 25% for PvE, it deals 20% up to 60% reduced damage to each enemy hit in a succession. Well, if a guy in front of you gets hit by a car, you will take lesser impact damage, something like that. And inflicts a displacement effect that repels all target 3 blocks. I've seen a lot of 3C skills that are worse than this 2C skill. It's insane. Very high damage multiplier, breaks weapon, which is quite important. It breaks things like Ragnarok, Locust Piercer, Crystal Stinger. There are quite a lot of very impactful weapon skills if you lack any dispels. And Epsilon's weapon even. There's just a lot of very good effects that comes with weapons, even more so than armor in my opinion. And it deals less damage if you hit a lot of people, but that's not really a bad thing, right? You just don't kill them, because this already starts with a very high multiplier, and You're using this mostly for the displacement and the weapon break anyway, I would say. So it's pretty strong skill. And then we look at his 3C, Toyota. So it comes with a passive where after taking action, if no damage was dealt, gains Yaido. I don't know, am I pronouncing this correctly? Before battle, deals 0.25 times AoE damage to all enemies in a 1 ring range. Last 1 turn. 0.25! That's a legit AoE. Most like normal AoEs are 0.3. You just get 0.25 for not dealing damage the previous turn. And this also works when you use the sugar intake. When you act again, you technically didn't do damage during the action and you can get this passive. So, you know, it's pretty strong. It's basically, you can think of it like Fury of Tear, I guess. They will apply at the same time. If you get the Tear buff, you will get this Toyota buff as well. And onto the actual attack, which is a physical damage attack. Single target deals 1.8 times damage. Before battle, dispel 5 of the enemy buffs, so it's a Sword Soul variant. After battle, nullifies all enemy equipment skills. So weapon, armor, helmet, accessory, 4 debuffs. Last 2 turns. And okay, this where the target player is non-player hero is PvE, reduce all stats by 25%. Cannot be dispelled. Quite important. The cooldown for this skill is reduced by 5 if the enemy doesn't die. So you can kinda just use it for free if you miss a kill. So, well, this matters when you miss a kill on a very bulky target, you get to try again. Or you just get to cut down a tank with double skills. Because, you know, the tank revives, it doesn't die, you get to use it again. This thing has a cooldown of 2 turns, so you cannot just spam the Toyota every time something doesn't die. It has an internal cooldown. So this, you know, I guess this is mostly concerning PvE as well. So, you know, you have to cycle his attack skills with the other, you know, cheaper attack skills. Yeah, pretty strong 3C as well, especially the undispellable break all enemy equipment skills. So things like, I don't know, it's just everything in general. Your hero just becomes naked when you get hit by this. On your tank, you lose quite a lot of stats, and you lose the ability to proc things like Forbidden. If your tank has an accessory like Blood Pack, you can heal block them after. Angel's Feather, you can stun them. Although I think if you already land this attack on the tank, you don't really need to stun them anymore. But you know, just some examples. So this guy has one other unique skill, which is Guardian Oath. It's basically a buff that you can apply to a non-summon friendly unit, and you basically guard for that unit for physical attacks as long as the unit is within 3 blocks. If you die while guarding, you will revive at 50% of HP, and it can only trigger once per battle. And if the guy that you apply this Guardian Oath on dies, Gintoki will permanently enter the Shiroyasha state, permanent transform. Although I would say it's very rare for this hero to de-transform, so it's kinda just there just in case. But this skill is kinda nice because it means you can put something that might not have as long as a threat range in front. So I don't know, something like Lost Ham or whatever unit that you want to initiate with, you can put him in front, and you know, if the enemy has like 4 long leg attackers that don't go through guard, like physical attackers like, you know, Rosalia, Wetham, Elwyn, Kagura kind of thing, you can just throw this on the Lost Ham and put him in front, and you basically can tank 1 hit for free on Gintoki. And you can let the guy in front do what he wants to do without being zoned out by the enemy long leg attackers. So the problem with this skill is that you have to drop one of these skills. So Egg again is pretty good because it's a self-heal and has a decent cooldown that you can abuse. Ram is pretty nice because of the displacement and the weapon break as well, on top of dealing pretty decent damage. So it's kind of difficult to fit this skill in, but you know, if you're fighting a very specific draft, you can consider this option over one of these 2 skills. As for his other attack skills, if you're fighting a very like anti-displacement lineup, you can consider just bringing Air Slash or Sword Soul, depending if you want range against a Actually, no, you pretty much never consider add slash because tankless teams usually are, you will be able to affect them with displacement, so there's no reason not to bring this. But Sword Soul, is an additional strong attack if you're fighting a kind of like Hilda lineup where you find it difficult to push. Like, Hilda Rosen lineups, you can't do debuff, you can't push. You might as well bring Sword Soul, I guess. So yeah, that's about it for his skills. You won't consider any of the other skills. For his class, I go with the Leader of Odd Jobs. His other class is Sword Saint, and this class basically has better defense but worse skill. I think their HP and attack is the same if I remember correctly. The main difference is the defense and skill, and I choose to go for the more defensive build with double suffered crit. So reason for that is this hero is, his primary function is kind of like a late game cleanup unit, because he benefits a lot from his teammates dying. So you kind of want him to be able to survive in situations where, the enemy has exhausted their skills and they're trying to kill him with normal attack, but it's just not possible because he's too bulky to be killed without skills, and that's what I'm going for. If you want him to crit a bit more, you can go for the Sword Saint path, I suppose, to increase his damage ceiling, but I think this hero's crit rate isn't that reliable. His base skill is pretty low. So yeah, that's just not what I want to go for. As for his soldiers, he has a bunch of pretty decent options. His Steel Wing, Sensi, Phalanx, Hoplites that you will mainly consider. And out of those four, you will bring either Sensis or Phalanx 90% of the time. Sensi is a very, very strong infantry troop and is quite decently bulky as well. Phalanx is what you will consider if you are trying to fight a bunch of cavalry, and also if you want to tank Epsilon. Sensis will struggle to tank Epsilon if you don't proc your armor. So if your game plan involves tanking a hit from Epsilon, you will want to consider bringing Phalanx. Hoplites, I don't really like this troop because it's like a middle ground Lancer troop that is slightly offensive and slightly defensive, but I feel like he's bad at both. Because usually you bring a Lancer troop to tank cavalry most of the time, but when you're attacking with Hoplites, you will unit ignore class disadvantage. I guess it's kind of okay because your hero attacks first, so your hero will not do reduced damage, but I don't know, I feel like if you want a defensive unit, you go for Phalanx, and if you want an offensive unit, just go for Sensis, even if you're fighting into cavalry. I feel like Sensis just doesn't care most of the time. And finally, we have Stewing Warriors, which is like kind of also a middle ground troop where you're not sure what troops the enemy is going to bring, and can be an okay option when you're playing on terrain heavy maps. But I don't know, again, I think Sensi is just too good. The self-healing as a late game unit, having an inbuilt self-heal on your troop is just insanely good. So unless you require the defense capability of Phalanx, I would just always bring Sensi. But there are situations where Stewing Warriors can be good, but it's it's a bit of theory crafting, which I'll cover here in the equipment section. So I don't even have a TLDR like made for this hero because this cookie cutter build is, is pretty much best in slot. There are certain flex options you can consider, but Mimir is a no-brainer for a unit that functions off his allies' deaths, similar to Yusuke. Just get a free heal and you get a free hero damage plus 20%, which is actually pretty good for a hero that will sometimes struggle to find attack buffs in his team because his factions are kind of uncommon. So you're either running Lovina, SP Matthew, which will come out later, or you're running Landius, because unless you're fucking trolling, you won't be running any time buff first anytime soon. So yeah, the damage dealt 20% can be pretty clutch, and there's no other weapon that comes close to this. Fury of Tear, for similar reason, not really a similar reason, but similarly doesn't really have a close replacement because this hero acts again quite a fair bit, so you actually do benefit from Fury of Tear a lot, and it's the best DPS helmet anyway. Forbiddance is the choice because it allows him to RNG survive hits that he shouldn't be surviving, and that's kind of it. So other options, I think, something that I've theory crafted is actually mirror armor. And the reason for that is because he gets an attack first when he's in his transformed state. So mirror armor, specifically for fighting Wet Ham, you can break his last rites and you can potentially just straight up kill him before he attacks you. Which is, can be game winning. But it pretty much only works against Wet Ham. I don't think anyone in their right mind will send an Ares to attack a Gintoki. And Ares is pretty rare nowadays, I would say. And the main function of mirror armor is to break 100% HP effects, which is mainly last rites. And melee last rite attackers are basically only flyers. So there's that. But it's a possible option for playoffs if you want to consider it. And there's another option which is Tiamat. So the reason why Tiamat isn't really run on this hero is because his best trope is Sense C, which means this armor is useless because it's run on mixed units. However, if you plan to draft in a way that gives a lot of single target mages, you can consider this option and just bring Steel Wings. I think with Steel Wings and Tiamat, you basically cannot die to mages, I think, even if there's Fireball. But don't quote me on that, I didn't test that, but Steel Wings plus the damage taken reduction from Tiamat, especially if you get it on a terrain map as well, you can pretty much be immortal against magic, I think. I think. It's just a theory craft, but I don't know, I'll take my RNG survive with Defender's armor. So his accessory, Overlord's Badge is the best one for HP mostly. And it also grants him the immunity to stat reduction, which is mainly relevant for mobility reduction, things like Himiko, and also for Lucretia's 3C. So, his 3C just doesn't work on Gintoki, and you are better off using Dark Reaper. So, on top of the base HP, other options you want to consider could be Heart of Gaia. Again, it's specifically for fighting Wet Ham, so if you don't plan to ban Wet Ham and you find yourself in this matchup a lot, it's an option you can consider to help him, just avoid the heal reversal. So if you survive, you can just sugar intake, heal back to pretty much full if you are Sensi as well, then you just pretend nothing happened. If you're attacking a build, you can always consider, Apex Boots for more mobility, but it does sacrifice his survivability quite a bit, which, as a late game unit, you kind of want to bank on his survivability quite a fair bit, but at the end of the day, it depends on how you play the hero. So, accessory is always like pretty, up to debate. Like, fuck it, you can run Spirit Boots if you really want to, if you want to hit and run. Back to terrain. Like, be my guest, go run a Tiamat and Spirit Boots with Steel Wing Gintoki and just play around terrain. Be my guest. I think, you can probably catch people off guard with it. But yeah, that's about it for his equipment. So, because I recorded this Saturday night on ladder opening, so you get to actually have live games to take examples from. So there are two things that I want to showcase regarding Gintoki in this game. First one is his talent stacks. So I actually didn't know this until I reviewed this game. But his talent where it says he will gain a stack of talent when his allies get attacked, it's actually per ally. If you look at this before I drop the sword, he actually has no talent stacks at all. When I drop the sword, you will see you can see his talent pop up once, but it doesn't pop up like 5 times. It just shows up one time, but if you click on it, he actually got all 4 talent stacks. Sorry. Yeah, he just transforms from one sword. So, be careful when you play AoE into a defensive team. You will just give Gintoki all 4 of his stacks. And the other thing that I want to showcase about this hero is making use of his Toyota passive. You can see here, he just killed my Ares earlier, so he doesn't have it. Oops, not this action. yeah. If you don't break last rights on this hero, I mean, I guess, you know, this is a very specific situation because the Sensi is next to an ally, this is still 5 stars, you know, but if you don't break the last rights, his damage, you know, it can look kind of sus in these kind of situations. So what I'm trying to say is, you know, try to make use of the passive if you can, even if you have to, you know, alternate your attacks or use the sugar intake. It will make or break games, I would say, because there's another hit next. You know, when he act again, he again doesn't have the passive. He hits my. This is still Sky Archer's turn. I'm just gonna let it play out. You can see he tries to hit my Lost Ham later with his 3C. It's a Lost Ham, it's an assassin, and it fails to kill as well. So, you know, despite him having a lot of damage increase from his transform, he can struggle quite a bit against the 2 tankiest troops in the game, which is Sensi and Werewolf. The other one is Phalanx, but I don't think Gintoki will struggle to kill Phalanx units for obvious reasons. But yeah, last rights with tanky troops can be a fail if you don't make use of his passive. And finally, I want to showcase why I said during the beginning of this video that Gintoki's talent can actually be tricky to use properly. So this is actually a casual game that I played last week. It's not a ladder game, but it's a very good example of how his talent can be abusable if, you know, you don't use it properly in the right situations. So you can see this is my turn. Actually no, it's his turn I think. Yeah. So I just use my Die Hard. I just kill the summon, which is outside of his guard range with a normal attack, ranged attack. I move back and I trigger the Gintoki's act again. And the problem with this is he actually cannot come out to kill me because I'm gonna kill him with my mage next turn if he does that. So by doing this, I basically force him to move Gintoki, and I get to move first next turn. You know, I force out the scooter from him because I'm gonna kill the Ares otherwise. And now it's my turn and I can just get the fuck out. So, and now I'm player 1, which is, you know, depending on how you look at it, it's not exactly what you want when you have CC White. But having turn priority in like aggressive matchups can be pretty nice. So, you know, okay, maybe this is not the best example to give because there's 2 CC Whites and I just gave him player 2. But during this turn, there's going to be something else similar happening. So I add again my Die Hard. You know, he moves his unit here, he dives his Rosalia in. So normally, I will move my Die Hard and the Rosalia will get to move next turn and kill one of my units. But what do I do here? I go in, I kill his Ares, which triggers the Gintoki's act again. But I stun him with Die Hard on the act again, and I get to go first this turn. So it's mainly about turn priority, and it can kind of fuck you over if you're not careful with it, basically. Because I get to go first now, I kill the Rosalia, and you know, he comes out to attack me. It doesn't even matter if my Die Hard dies, my TGS will kill him. So you have to be careful with positioning Gintoki, basically. You kind of want him to stay out of danger at the start, especially before he gets his 4 stacks of talent. But you also don't want him far enough from the action that his act again gets triggered without him doing anything and you give a free pass to your enemy to start off the next turn. Yeah, that's basically most of the not so obvious things about Gintoki's talent, which I want to cover. Everything else is pretty straightforward. You know, the stats, the damage taken, damage dealt increase, all those are pretty, you know, pretty straightforward. So that's all I want to cover regarding Gintoki's, you know, quirks, I guess. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. See you guys in the next one. Peace.